Sisu is an untranslatable Finnish term used to describe an extraordinary level of bravery, confidence, perseverance, and sustained courage. It's also a great new English language under-the-radar movie from Finnish writer-director Jalmari Helander, released last weekend on a relatively small budget of around $6 million. Told over 7 chapters, we go back to 1944 as the Nazis are on a scorched earth retreat from Finland, leaving the country desolate as they try to consolidate their overall losses with the war going against them. We meet one Finnish man who has decided to leave the war behind him and escape to the wilderness. During his day-to-day survivalist lifestyle, he strikes gold, but that puts him in the crosshairs of one Nazi company who are keeping a group of women hostage, looking to get out of the war with more than an inevitable hanging they sense is on the way. Unfortunately, they have no idea what they've let themselves in for by crossing this man, and when they learn what they have, they've already gone too far to turn back. Sisu is like if Quentin Tarantino directed Rambo, and sure enough, after thinking that, when I did my research, I was unsurprised to find that Helander had quoted First Blood as a huge influence. It's an incredibly simple setup, to the point that the main character doesn't really even have a name, doesn't speak in more than grunts and anguished screams in battle, and you don't even really need him to. It reminded me of the first John Wick, and that it gives you just enough that you need to know and then gets out of its own way and has a lot of fun with the concept. And also, like John Wick, it understands that loving dogs is badass. That's very important. Another movie I liken this to is one of my favorite movies of the past few years, Nobody, and that it has a very clear sense of itself. It knows what it wants to do, and then it does it so effectively that you and the audience can just switch your brain off and sit back and be entertained. The Tarantino vibes come from the swaggering confidence, blending dark humor into horrific occurrences, the use of chapters, and the tendency to almost luxuriate in violence. However, where Tarantino can sometimes almost use excessive violence to provoke and to almost dare and goad the media into giving his projects notoriety, this feels more pure intentioned. Don't get me wrong, there are some moments here that are absolutely disgusting and you need to look away from the screen for, but something can be disgusting without actively trying to disgust you at the same time. You sense that Helander wanted more of a no-holds-barred approach to this movie, but the gore is almost artful as well. It's at times deployed for humor, it's at times cathartic. Sometimes the gore is used to build tension, like one scene with action happening underwater where blood emerging to the top both tells you where the people are fighting as well as telling you what's happening without actually showing you, as we instead see it through the eyes of the terrified witnesses who know that they're probably next. The creative leaps are absolutely huge, but that's also part of the fun. There were constant loud guffaws of appreciation in the screening that I saw it in. Again, going back to Rambo, that can play a bit cheesy these days, but that's something that people now love about it. Sisu understands that, and the knowingness takes away that cheese because they're trying to do a Rambo. Jorma Tamila is excellent in the lead role, which requires an incredibly intense physicality, but also an awful lot of intangibles to make essentially a non-speaking lead role not only bearable but crackle. Mimosa Willamo playing the main speaking role for The Bitches, that's the movie's name for them, by the way. I'm not just getting into a habit of calling women bitches again like it's the late 90s. It also gets to that B-movie spirit that's needed for her role to work. I'm going to say something that I don't say often here, and I'm probably hopefully not going to say often for the rest of my life. But in this movie, in Sisu, the real stars of the show for me were the Nazis. There's an obvious logic to picking Nazis as the antagonists, in that, like Inglourious Basterds, it allows us to enjoy the catharsis of the violence guilt-free. But the portrayals led by Axel Hinnie, who you may remember from The Martian, keeps them the right combination of human enough to not seem like cartoon baddies, while also being reprehensible enough to want to see them maimed one by one. For all the movies Sisu reminds me of, more than anything, I liken it to a restaurant like Bunsen. You know, the type who have like 3 things in the menu, but because they know what they do well, and they just give you exactly that done fucking amazingly. That's this movie. It's a lot of fun, and actually the first I've seen this year that was met with a round of applause at the end of the screening. And you know what? It deserves it. Go out of your way to see this. It really deserves to build a cult following.